They will share their creative expression and insights on the impact the COVID-19 pandemic has had on us and the communities all around us. As we live in a current moment of transition, we have to continue to understand and listen of the longstanding history and stories that has brought you here to reside on the land. The land is part of who we are. It is part of our past, our current, and our future. We should carry these respectfulness of the people who have been here thousands of generations and will continue for generations to come. If we could take the moment to acknowledge the University of Arizona and the city of Tucson is located on the native homelands of the Tohono O'odham Nation in the lands of the Paskwayaaki tribe. They are the ones whose care and keeping of these lands allows us to be here today. Whether you are joining us here in Tucson, in the surrounding area of the Salt River Valley, including the Akamo O'odham, Pima, and the Peepash Maricopa Indian communities, or in other areas placed in relation to the original people of the land, it is imperative that we continue to carry these reflections where you currently reside, and we need to build on our mindfulness of our present participation. Before we jump into announcements and introductions, I would like to go over a few housekeeping updates for this late afternoon. Each community artist will present for about 12 minutes, and after the presentation, we will open it up for Q&A. But feel free to address questions at any time in the chat box located at the bottom of the screen or in the comment box on Facebook Live. We will try our best to get them answered at the end of the presentations. So now I would like to introduce you to Javier Duran, who is the director of the Confluence Center for Creative Inquiry and professor of Latin American and Border Studies, who will introduce our presenters for this late afternoon. Take it away, Javier, and Ahiahat.
Thank you, Yadira. Welcome, everyone. Bienvenidos a todos to one more show and tell. As the pandemic continues to impact the world, it is important to recognize how our communities continue to grapple with its consequences. And while stories of survival and resilience permeate our imaginaries, the deep and lasting effects of this destruction continue to affect us all. I ask you to pause and reflect on this struggle by observing a short moment of silence to acknowledge those who have left us. Thank you. 9 years ago, we had our first show and tell at the Playground bar in downtown Tucson, in a moment when downtown was facing an important transformation. Emeritus Professor of Art Jackson Bowles presented about his art, and that episode began one of the long-lasting events of the Confluence Center, an event deeply rooted in creativity and community. We're really thankful to the Tucson community for all the support during these years. I also take this opportunity to thank the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation for their support for this program of Pandemidiarios on the Border. And my sincere thanks to the Confluence Center team, which makes all of this possible. Angela Martinez, Jasmine Vasquez, Yadira Caballero, Cristian Rubalcaba, Valeria Tapia, and Ruth Batia. Muchas gracias. A couple of announcements. Our next Fronteridades lecture series with Professor Socorro Tahuenca from the University of Texas at El Paso, entitled Fronteras Físicas y Metafóricas, Usos Cotidianos y Académicos, will be on November 29th at 5:30 p.m. And then the following day, on November 30, there will be an open discussion on Zoom with Dr. Norma Cantu, our first presenter of the Fronteras lecture series, and with Dr. Tahuenca. So that will be a bilingual dialogue. You all invited to attend and register, please, for those conversations. I also want to ask you to take a quick 1-minute survey on getting to know our audience and how they are hearing about us. And there's going to be a link in the chat if I'm not mistaken. So please do that. And very important, I want you to save the date for our next show and tell on December the 8th, which will be, if all goes well, in person on the West Side. So there's going to be more information coming, but I just want you to know that we're really excited about this opportunity to reconnect with the community in person. So more to come soon. Today, we have Melissa Brown Dominguez and Mel Dominguez joining us from Galeria Mitotera to introduce our presenters and moderate our Q&A session. Galeria Mitotera is a space where Chicanx culture is celebrated, artists of color in the community are uplifted, and a safe space for community members and artists to inspire one another through art and togetherness. And that those values are cultivated in that space. It's really bringing new life to the South Side, and especially to South Tucson. And I really encourage you to visit such a space when you have a moment. Mel Dominguez is an artist, muralist from LA who has lived in Tucson since 2007. Mel is a community outreach began at self-help graphics and art in East LA, where he was a Getty intern. Mel was the summer youth coordinator that headed the community mural project with the youth from the neighborhood. Mel's artwork is a direct expression of his Chicanx culture, political, social, and environmental issues. And it's always trying to think of different ways to see society and life. Melissa Brown Dominguez is an experienced administrator with a demonstrated history of working in real estate, higher education, and the nonprofit environment. She's a skilled negotiator, event manager, and team builder. She's the arts administrator at Galeria Mitotera, who coordinates, manages, and supports all of the events and classes with a creative and welcoming spirit. In my view, she's one of the most influential arts and culture brokers into the Tucson community. Es una de las gestoras culturales y artísticas más importantes de Tucson en este momento, y lo digo así abiertamente. So I'm grateful and delighted to welcome this dynamic duo who's changing the artistic landscape of South Tucson. So con eso, bienvenidos. Muchas gracias por aceptar participar. And adelante, Mel, Melissa. Welcome to Show and Tell, and take it away.
Muchas gracias. Thank you so much, Javier, for that introduction. So meaningful coming from you. We really appreciate those the kind words. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We are excited to be here to introduce these amazing 3 artists that are with us tonight. Again, please, if you have any questions during the presentations, please drop them in the chat, and we will try to get through all of them by the end of all of the artists. So we are going to begin this evening with Sarah Hubbs. And let me tell you a little bit about Sarah. Sarah is a multidisciplinary artist with family ties to the Sonoran Desert for more than 8 generations. Her project, The Pandemic Mother Map, is inspired by the family story that her great-great-grandmother immigrated from Altar, Sonora, Mexico, to Phoenix during an epidemic. The death of her great-great-grandfather during the epidemic seems to be the event that caused the family to migrate. A paper-based story map will visually locate experiences of the women in Hubbs' ancestral line across 5 generations, their movement through the Sonoran Desert, and the occurrence of 3 global epidemics spanning 130 years. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for that introduction, and thank you to the Confluence Center. This grant in this project is really personal and really amazing on a personal level and on an artistic level. So I really appreciate the opportunity to look a little deeper into this moment. And Melissa, you summarized it here for me, but just in general, this is I just thought of visualizing this experience. And actually, when I went back and counted, it was 6 generations of primarily mothers in my family line through the Sonoran Desert during during 3 pandemics and an epidemic. And so those, my great-great-grandfather dying, and from what I understand from family stories, that was of smallpox. That seems to be what my great-great-grandmother, why she immigrated to Phoenix. And I included 3 pandemics because at that time there was also globally the Russian flu that was going on. That's what it was called. And I don't know, I'm not a historian. I don't know how that affected, northern Mexico or, different parts of the Sonoran Desert. But I thought I'd include that because what I was interested in this project was visualizing like a deeper sense of time, of a deeper sense of the cyclical nature of pandemics. I have a 9-year-old, and especially at the beginning of the pandemic, things were very difficult and very uncertain, as each of us have our personal, experiences of how this made us, affected our lives. And my mom was really sick at that time, and my husband is a healthcare worker. So he was, treating people who potentially did have COVID. And I was kind of struggling with being between, being a parent and being a daughter, and understanding, beyond protecting my child, what can I teach her? What can I do for her? How can I help her through this? How can this be an experience that helps her in the rest of her life? And also for myself, as I was looking for someone to kind of turn to in certain situations. I kind of found myself thinking about my relatives, number one, and number two, I was really looking towards other mothers, and family members who were mothers, and some of the extra burdens that they were taking on during this time, and some of the fears and losses that they were going through. And I remembered this, story from my great aunt and a cousin that, that my great grandmother had immigrated because of losing her husband and I think a small child. And, I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, yes, this has happened before, but why does it feel like it hasn't? How come I don't have any understanding of this or this kind of greater historical memory? And so I decided to look at my family information, as well as, try to kind of connect the dots historically. And I'm going to start sharing my screen so you can see it real quick. Okay, here it is. So a lot of my work, I use things that I can find in the home because it is about being a parent. And a lot of these items, whether it's any kind of imagery or, things like I'm using Sharpies and highlighters and stickers, these are things that remain in the home a lot of times, kind of confined to this experience. And so I like to put them out there. This is essentially like a Mylar map overlaid on top of photos of my relatives, the people in this project. And I'm gonna just kind of take it through. I went pretty literal with this just so I could really visualize what was going on here. And so each section is, represents a pandemic or this moment in time. So this one is in Altar and 1892 to 93. And I researched some maps and used some of the marks from these maps to denote, things like the migration or death. And then the stickers represent both the smallpox that was endemic to northern Mexico and also the Russian flu, which again, I'm not quite sure about how that affected it. But so the silhouette, I colored it in on the spot where for these people who are of my family who are having this experience in this moment, in this place. And it was just, so then also, sorry, I have the map of the Sonoran Desert, which I just did in highlighter. So there's kind of like these different layers here. This is Maricopa County, and according to census records, my great-great-grandmother was living there with her son and my grandmother, and she was a small child during the flu of 1918. And so I was just sort of imagining how, my great-great-grandmother must have felt after the losses that she experienced, and then living with that potential for loss that we all kind of were experiencing as well, with her small grandchild and her son in this new place. Oh, whoops. Okay, so and then we shift into 2021 to the COVID-19 pandemic, and again we have both Maricopa County and Pima County, and the COVID-19 pandemic represented there by the patterning. And on top, the silhouette is my mom and living in Phoenix. And then on the side is my daughter and I living in Tucson. And I use these bird migration pattern tick marks to kind of symbolize the experience of going up and down the I-10 in between the two cities during this time to visit and provide care with my mother and my father as well. And then, I just wanted to talk a minute about the imagery in the background. I use these in some of my other artwork in the paper pieces, which was actually the initial inspiration or the initial idea for this piece. Is I was like, I want to make this paper wall installation like how I make them, but it was just really hard using really specific information that was so personal. And so that's why I did this layering effect. And what I do is I take these images and I copy them on my home printer until the ink runs out. And so it's sort of like this, first of all, I like that it's this thing that's bound by this item that you find in your home. And then I also, this idea of repetition and a way to represent time and possibly erasure as well. I'm just going to show you a couple of these real quick so you can get an idea, because the Mylar makes it a little bit difficult to see in the back. So I was taking like different logos and items from toy packaging and changing them, cutting them, rearranging them, and then copying them. And so they created this larger shape and this larger pattern that you can see. But the legibility really changes into a way that it becomes just this shape on the bottom. And that's in some ways how I feel sometimes about as you get further away from your family, and sometimes, your culture, you start to have this shape, but not necessarily these details. And that was something that was really apparent during this experience of making this piece. Let's go through a couple more really quickly so you can kind of see how it came about. And this is the one where I first started using actual family photos. And you can see how they kind of make these greater sort of abstract shapes and in them. So these are all like LOL doll packaging, things that the kids are into. I'm going to go back real quick, and in the background as well, I interspersed a saguaro blossom in between the images of my family members, partly because I'm always struck by the fact that saguaros grow beneath a nurse plant. And whether you're a mother or not, this kind of representation of an act of mothering and of care and of nurturing, and also as the symbol of longevity, and the fact that there's this possibility that I've been in the same, I've passed by or experienced the same sorrow that someone in my family from this deep time that I don't know has as well. And, the last thing that I'll say to me that was really interesting was that, if you look at the silhouettes, it almost makes this kind of full circle within the Sonoran Desert from going from Outback to Phoenix to Tucson. And that was just a really, personally, a really special and interesting thing for me to see. And yeah, I think that's all. I'm gonna stop my share. So
I love looking at maps, and I hope that folks listening and watching, that you add your questions on the end there. Some of those items, like you said, like over time and the process and the detail, it's a lot to soak up and soak in. So I want to thank you so much
yeah.
for sharing those details with us.
Thanks. It was kind of hard to do that. And I want to also add, I'm not a historian. I'm an artist, and I try my best, to kind of wrap my own mind around it. And so to keep it personal, but to have this kind of bigger, framework was how I went for it. So thank you.
With being an artist and the way that you documented it's your start of being a historian.
Possibly.
A visual historian. So that's really awesome. And I think that's another opportunity that the pandemidiarios gives the artist, is to document these sorts of events that happen and take place. So for our next artist.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, our next artist is Ruben Moreno. Arizona State Museum exhibit specialist Ruben Moreno will speak on his project, On the Inside Looking Out, a mural painted to show a positive aspect that came out of the quarantine ordered during the COVID-19 pandemic. If you haven't seen it yet, this is a super cool piece. Ruben, take it away.
Thank you, Mel, Melissa. Hi, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. I want to thank the Confluence Center. I want to thank Angela and Yadira and Javier and Mel, Melissa, everybody for being here. I'm honored to present with Sarah and Dolores. As always, I'm always honored to present with fellow artists, struggling artists in my community, and so I guess I'm here to talk about my piece. And I apologize, I wasn't thinking ahead, and I didn't have like a way to show you. I don't even have the image on my computer. But if anybody of the moderators is out there and wants to find my image to show, I would love that, but you don't have to. Just putting that out there. But I want to talk about how I came to the idea of creating my imagery, which I'll tell you about it. It's basically, it's an isolated person. All of us basically went through the pandemic, and we all had our own isolation, our own time of being kind of trapped by our own home, trapped by our own confinements. And within that environment, we either meditated or we spent a lot of time thinking about all the things that we missed, or thinking about all the things that we like to do and suddenly couldn't do. And all these days that went by of just sitting at home, it inspired me to like come up with a way to do a mural without actually having to go out into the public. And this is where a portable mural came to life. So I happen to have access to a bunch of old big banners that I had in my possession. And so I set up in my yard this big, like 10 by 15 foot banner. And I started on the process of doing a mural. Essentially, it was an outdoor mural, but I got to do it at home. And the concept basically was a person sitting inside of a saguaro. And I think some of us have probably seen how a saguaro, when it starts to decay, you can see the ribs of the saguaro. And so my concept was like kind of being trapped inside the ribs of the saguaro. Two things that happened during the pandemic for me personally was my creativity was zapped, like it completely went away. Suddenly I had very little energy and very little drive to create things. And I would sit down, and time after time, I would just fail. I would just come up with nothing, or I didn't like anything I was creating. And the second thing that happened was I found I got to reconnect with nature. So I got into different things, like I got into mountain biking and I got into rock climbing. And this led me into the great wild. I got to do, oh, thank you so much. So yeah, there's a close up of the centerpiece. And so being out in nature, and there was a lot of people missing in nature, like the hiking trails weren't nearly as crowded as they usually are. I started to notice there was a lot more animals out. And at the same time, the news from around the world was also reporting how animals were curious about our environments and were like wandering into the cities or facilities even. Like I saw footage of like a bear in a mall. Like it was really wild. Like animals were like, they were just kind of curious and they were coming around because there was no humans. So with all those things in mind and that inspiring me, I decided to like try to attack doing a piece of art that was simple and fun, because a lot of times my artwork tends to be really heavy, tends to be really intense. The creation of it is always with a ton of detail, a ton of research, and it's just a lot of times it's exhausting. And so I really needed to like get back on track somehow and get myself back on the horse. And the way I did it was I went back to my roots, which was when I was a child. My family from Mexico would bring me all these books from Mexico and calendars from Mexico, and something that I always was happy to see and like really fascinated by was Mesoamerican writing, like in the codices or like on a wall, sometimes called a stela. And so I went back to that and I just started looking for animals, and it was a lot of fun. Like I found so many animals, but I wanted the animals to kind of tie in with the Sonoran Desert. So I gathered all these images of animals that were literally taken from the books of Mesoamerican, either Mayan or Aztec or Toltec. They basically spanned like all the tribes, and there's a ton of it online. You can find it all online. And I composed this image that was at its core extremely simple, extremely crude, which was really hard for me to do. It was like I had to like basically forget everything I know about art and just like force myself to do something that was fun and simple. But also the main driving force was to do something that wasn't depressing, because everything around us was sad and heavy, and my artwork was always going there. So I was like, well, I'm gonna try to put a positive spin on this. You know, I'm an optimist at heart. So essentially seeing all the animals was uplifting, and it was, every time I went out I would get excited to possibly see something I haven't seen before. And I tried to incorporate a lot of the animals that we see in the Sonoran Desert, and also like we have our pets with us, and so that's a really cool thing. It's like if we have pets, they were with us, they were in isolation with us. And I tried to put some modern things around the character, and I tried to do it like in the same style as the codex. So like he kind of has he has like a little headpiece on, but it's actually like Bluetooth speakers, you know. And then I also put in there's a little saying in the middle of it that is basically giving thanks to Mother Earth and to nature for helping us endure and get through this time period. And around that little poem or little saying, I have a bunch of little things that we were in isolation with, like our phones and our iPods and some food and some coffee, and I think there's a wine glass in there. So when I was done with it, Mal and Melissa helped me get it placed. Thank you for showing that they helped me getting it placed in public, and good friends at La Estrella Bakery um, said they would host it. So this mural is currently at the South 12th Avenue location of La Estrella Bakery. And it's just a perfect fit. It was actually serendipitous how well it fit. The mural height was almost exactly the height of the building. It was just like, whoa, that's really weird, but I'm so happy that it worked out that way. And ultimately, this project, like, it unblocked whatever was blocking me, because after the project was done, I felt refreshed. I felt like awakened creatively, and I went right into another one. And so there's another portable mural, and that's going to be making the rounds in Tucson. And there's going to be more. So I'm looking forward to the energy. I'm looking forward to the world reawakening and people getting vaccinated and just life coming back, like I love how the way Mel and Melissa are saying they, like, the Renaissance, So that's my story.
Thank you, Ruben. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much. And it's true. It looks perfect on the wall of, Estrella Bakery, and they were so pleased to have it too. So
Cool. Yeah, I'm happy that that's there. That's, the bakery means a lot to me too, because I come from a family of bakers, and so that was another thing. Um, our ancestors that passed away during our time, like during our lives before the pandemic. It's always sad to think that they're not here, but I would have been so sad if, like, I couldn't visit my ancestors that passed away. Like, I was just like, in a way, like, I was like, I can't imagine them being alone, and all the abuelitos and abuelitas out there that had to spend time alone because of the pandemic. It's just really rough. So, but I'm glad we have Zoom. I'm not entirely burned out on it.
it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ruben.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
So our last artist of the evening is Dolores Rivas Bati. And Dolores is a former U of A Department of Spanish and Portuguese faculty member. Dolores wrote an introduction and captions for a geo-emotive array of poems and watercolors made from the start of national orders to shelter in place from March 2020 to March 2021. Her Pandemidiarios on the Border, Shelter in Place creative project, Unmasked, Imprints and Impressions of a Calendar Year, chronicles events in memory and time in Southern Arizona. Intimate poetry and painting became ways to experience, express, and endure grief. Welcome, Dolores. Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to the presenters. Everything that you said resonated so much with me about the impulse to return, go inside and think about the people that came before us, how much we love them, all of the memory that we carry around with us, and how it emerges sometimes when we have time. So I'm going to begin. The screen that you're seeing is going to project the watercolors that I did, small format watercolors that I've been doing for a long time now, but that I did later on after I finished writing the poems. I began to paint sunrises and sunsets as late winter light started lifting all of the clouds that we had to live through in spring and summer last year. So I begin my presentation with a dedication that I will read. That's pretty much what's at the beginning of the project. But it's important to me that I read this. 65th and 67th U.S. colored troops represent most of more than 180,000 African-American Civil War soldiers who died of epidemic disease. Soldiers who fell ill at Benton Barracks, Missouri, died mostly before they mustered in, others as they took the field. Soldiers with smallpox died for lack of medicine and lower resistance. That was a legacy of poverty and captivity. Measles outbreaks intensified risk of exposure to viral pneumonia. For my father, I dedicate Unmasked to the memory of young George Biggs and Beauchamp Biggs, who in spring 1864 died of viral pneumonia at Benton Barracks. In their names, I honor our family's history of service that led us to live and love in Arizona, in the American Southwest. So I made a selection of some of the poems that I wrote. My response to the solitude was sort of, well, maybe that'll be okay for a little while. Maybe I can do this. And then as it started getting bad for everybody, I thought there has to be some beauty in this. And I think maybe if I wait, I can find it. And then by May, I just had to start writing because I had just been processing so much of this. It just had to come out in some way. And so I turned to words, and then I turned to paint. So I'd like to acknowledge, along with the people that have already been mentioned, I want to acknowledge Logan Phillips, who's at my side here, who is guiding me and supporting me on my maiden poetry reading. So here's the very first one that I wrote that refers to the very beginning in March. It's called Pandemonium. Pink moonrise at dawn of spring, turning points in distant stars, spinning, yielding to life's mystery. Precipice, calamity, catastrophe, burden and blessing, archive of life, convert unbridled fire to creativity. Water spirits just now skimming southern sky, carmine clouds in indigo, below brown trails and yellow hills, spring green, above red-tailed hawk and white-winged dove. Pray to Mother Mary and the Sacred Heart, to sun and moon, to plants in bloom and gone to seed, to marble jaguar and agate hare, to serpentine eagle, to spirit bundle on turquoise bear. And then Easter came, and came the homemade altar, because every church was closed and we could be outside, but we needed to build altars to be able to commemorate the season. And that triggered a lot of memory for me. And so I wrote this for my son, who was in Los Angeles at the time. It's called Magdalene. For you, I prayed to Crow Mother as dawn became day, as yellow pollen on red earth in winter foretold spring, where elders recount life as downy mist that leaves our breath, becomes white clouds in summer rain. Transparent strokes for you became horizon lines, carved into chalk white Quetzalcoatl walls, where orchid stems in metal dust drew pictographs on earthen shrines. Lenten passion culminates, long weeks of solitary prayer. Talismans and amulets became 3 decades woven into current time. Allegories come alive, turn dream to trauma, and return as tentative fledgling calm, determined to survive. Moonlight wrapped in heat and haze, Magdalene held in unforeseen embrace. So those were the ones that I wrote when things felt really bad. And then I started feeling things turn around a little bit inside and out. And so I wrote this almost midway. It's called Pivot. Emotion tied to inner worlds, repeat patterns in our current age, beauty at margins of mistakes, averted gaze, ancient grief, self-defense. Forgiveness calm these storms, safely guide our hearts to shore, relegate memory to dreams, restore evening psalms and morning prayer. Patience away with urgency, claim deep space within this arc, turn ideas in written words from the academy toward poetry. Beauty, reveal yourself in sight and sound, in every gesture toward the heart, transmit love in every touch, tender lip and fingertip. Rise mindfully with light of day, breathe, choose life, find a way. I lost 4 of my people last year. Almost every other month, someone was leaving, and someone who left was my grandniece, a young mother who died unexpectedly from an opioid overdose. And this is called Songbird. At winter's end and dawn of spring, 2 pipers came in virtual unison, high notes with low notes in between, tiny duet for flute and violin. Little hands smoothed Nana's quilt, in summer swam in desert sun, in winter birdsong bundles in purple and pink, in girlhood reading, writing, and learning to dream. Our hummingbird in summer, so newly grown, has flown. In half light of first quarter moon, our flower came full circle in full bloom. Dearest breathed in monsoon clouds, live in light behind the misty night, move softly from here to hereafter, in beauty every passing day. Cactus wren at morning greets the morning dove. Family gardens fill with birdsong, fill with love. And my final one is how it felt very close to spring in early March. I went to San Javier and just stood and looked in the 4 directions. It's called Cloudscape. Yellow Sonoran light from Sea of Cortez at morning enters from Santa Cruz toward San Javier. Billowing clouds on blacktop pools break through southerly roads leading from there to here. Mammoth forms in mottled sky, black snail shadow on valley floor, carried by Pacific rain and torrential wind, imposing, dark as clouds by day can be in spring. White clouds at noon lift above new snow, quench scorched earth since summer raw and dry. Catalina peaks in cerulean sky cast brilliant light across the north. Receding storm due east veils Santa Rita fields, gray clouds, red hills, blue mountain line, spirit medicine, planetary play, air breathing out and in, healing winter greets resurgent spring. Compass of 4 directions, prism of valley light, complete land circle in this sacred web of time. And so when I was organizing these poems, I organized them according to season, spring into summer, the movement of time from summer into fall, fall into winter, and then winter into spring. And I'll just read my last little caption that I wrote that introduced the watercolors and the poetry for winter into spring. My bereavement year in memory was as fleeting as it in life felt eternal. Time lapsed into billowing light on greening mountains. Clarity emerged in strokes of insight and sheets of rain bathing skies in pristine color. Red-orange cumulus in indigo sky. Blue fire mirrored in refracted light, quietude in the sound of gentle rain and the scent of burning cedar. The miracle of our capacity to love and live beloved is everywhere present in this place, where beauty embodies feeling, where blue with red becomes magenta.
That was wonderful.
Dolores, thank you so much. Your art and your words were so moving. I mean, incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Well, thank you for being here, being present with me when I read them. Thank you.
Beautiful. We are going to move into questions. I want to thank everybody who has submitted questions from the audience. So artist, I wanted to start, if you all are ready. We have a question that we would like for each of you to answer. This question came from the audience. It says, sorry, I can't see the small print, so I'm looking at my big screen. Can each of you elaborate more on how the art that they made helped them amid the quarantine and the height of the pandemic? Who would like to go first? Sarah?
Sure. Sorry, excuse me. I think that it really directly connected me to my relatives, my ancestors, the past, and their experience, and really gave me a way of visual, like a kind of a path forward, like a visualization of their strength, or of how to be, of how to keep doing things, of how to experience loss and honor that and keep going. And it kind of gave me this motivation, when times get really tough and you're like, how do I keep, the diligence going? How do I keep wearing this mask? How do I keep doing these things? What's the reason behind that and stuff? And there are so many, but I think it was really one of them for me. And it just allowed me to kind of organize all of that into one space. And like Dolores was saying, just the quiet of the moment just gave me a lot of room for reflection and listening to some of the wisdom that comes from the stories that we have or rediscover,
Ruben, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I was trying to unmute. I got caught up in the moment. Can you mind us restating the question? Thank you, Sarah. I got totally lost in your answer.
Oh, okay. So they want you to elaborate more on how the art that you created helped you amid the pandemic and through the height of the pandemic and the quarantine time.
Yeah, the process of putting down all the emotional things that were going on a day-to-day, for me, even failing at art was kind of a godsend. It put my mind in a different area of my emotions, so that I could kind of get through certain days, having this project and having like a goal in a time when everything was just being canceled, everything was being delayed, everything was being shut down. We were losing people, we were losing businesses, we were losing community. Being given like a project, something to hold on to, something tangible, something that was going to be shared down the road, that it really helped. So essentially, I was just grateful to be involved and happy to be included in this project.
Thank you, Ruben. Dolores?
I think creativity is very healing, and I just held on to that. And I thought, as I experience everything there's beauty in there's beauty there. And I want to experience that as well as the sorrow. I lost my father last year. He was in care, in nursing, so I couldn't see him the last few years, the last few months of his life. That was really so difficult to be so separated from him, even though he was just not that far away. And all of those things are so powerful, but they don't have to be completely sorrowful. So I think that for me, the work, the writing for me came, I just always, I just needed to be able to find a way to express how I was feeling figuratively. And so then the painting was a counterpoint because of the spontaneity that it represented. So I labored over the words, but not so much over the painting. And that meant that somehow or other I was liberating myself a little bit from the experience. And then poetry became painting, became performance. It just kept growing. It got a life of its own. It has a life of its own now, which is really life affirming.
We're looking for more of the questions, but you know what? After looking and experiencing and listening to all the words, I'm hoping that folks who are watching and listening in, that they were able to soak that in, because if they might not have known about you folks, about you artists who have had these projects, that they hear them now, and that they get to go through that process with you, because there was so much loss during that time.
We have a question for Sarah. Sarah, one of the audience members wants to know if you plan to expand your project in the future or make any additions to it.
Yeah, actually, when Dolores was talking, I was thinking one of the other, parts of this was that it was unexpectedly very like generative, because I think Dolores was saying like it was, the words led to the painting, to the performance. And I was like, yeah, I have so many ideas. And I think also partly because there's so much information and there's so many things to process, within it, that I think one piece can only do so much. And I think in a larger sense of my artwork, I've searched for ways to incorporate more personal aspects of, my history or my identity. And, this was a really interesting and generative way to do that. And yeah, initially, I think it's like this, we all needed these containers to put our experiences in, our grief, or, just to work things out in. And then now I feel like I can look outside of that a little bit more and pick some of those elements and continue, digging in.
I know this pandemic has left a lot of us with so many stories to tell of what we were doing while the pandemic was taking place. And then some of these current things, like Ruben, I think it's super cool that your piece is hanging on the side of Estrella, because I mean, you can go there almost any time of the day and there's a line. So it's awesome because those people are then showing up, and they're being exposed to something that is that like you said, it looks very like from the codices, like from way back when, where you kept it contemporary by putting iPhone and iPad. So I dig it for those reasons. Well, let's see.
And we actually have a question for Ruben, since we're on the topic of you. On the current mural that you are working on, what about this stage in the pandemic now is inspiring you? And what do you plan to focus on with your future artwork?
That's a good question. I'm actually focusing more on nature. I'm working on a design for a Jaguar themed, because you know we have the Jaguar is very much tied to also border politics because of the habitat that is being split up by the border. So I want to do something for that. And so that'll be hopefully my next portable mural. And down the road, I'm going to be working with more landscape and nature art that I've always been very narrative. I've always been in my art. I've always used figures very dominant on scenes or scenery about people, but I want to try to back up a little bit and do a little bit more landscapes. And I've never really done a true landscape. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you for asking.
Dolores, I don't know if you saw this in the chat, but Raymond says, Dolores, thank you for helping, healing, and guiding me almost 3 decades ago through art and poetry. You are a beautiful soul, and thank you and all for tonight. We have also a question from Christine. Christine, do you want to unmute yourself to ask your question?
Unfortunately, I think Christine left the chat already,
Oh,
but yeah, if anyone has any other questions, please just submit in the chat or the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen.
You know what would be really cool is to actually have some poetry painted on the wall so that more folks can like stop and read the poetry and get all those words and soak it all in. Because as you read off the poetry, it's neat to just hear one by one, boom, 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 each the words that you chose. So thank you for that. And I hope that more folks get to experience poetry in that way.
now that things are opening up, more performance, can't wait.
And that's my biggest plan, is to expose folks to more of this art. So being on the borderlands as we are. Oh, wait, do we have another question?
Oh, we do. I'm sorry for interrupting. So we do have a question. With everyone forced to stay home, did any of you feel a weird pressure to produce artwork? Who wants to start?
I'll throw in a few cents really quick. I was raised Catholic, so every day that I didn't make art or wasn't productive, I would go to bed feeling guilty. So it was that much pressure that I felt like I was failing at using this opportunity, like, and getting ahead artistically. But eventually it just felt defeated, and I was just like, well, I started hearing about other people who were having the same problem, and I just was like, okay, well, I'm not alone, so I'm just gonna like not beat myself up about it so much, and when it happens, and it did.
I think there was a lot of talk, like Ruben was saying, like in the art community, kind of like, you know, using this time. And I think for me, you know, I was kind of thrown into homeschooling. And so I was like, this just is what it is. And whatever kind of came out of it was, you know, great if I got something done. But I also started utilizing the studio in a different way where, you know, before I'd be more production oriented or product oriented. And I was like really using it as a place of refuge or therapy, or, you know, it really changed. And it was another place that I not only went by myself, but that I took my daughter to as well, you know, when we were kind of all just really at home a lot, you know, it was a different place to go and be, and it was kind of nice not feeling like I had to do.
Yeah, please, Dolores.
I go to Rhode Island every summer for few months. And last summer I couldn't go, and I'd been going for 30 years. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'd only missed 3, counting that one, I'd only missed 3 summers in 30 years. There's so much surrender and yielding and acceptance and everything that we learned during this time, about how we just have to live through it, I think, to find out how meaningful it was. And so I just sort of had this sensation of, I just knew that it was important, whatever it was. And in retrospect, I can identify quite a number of things that came out of it that were really beautiful, powerful, and kind.
Thank you all so much. So there is one more question. What does post-pandemic art look like in each of your views?
I'll go first this time, because I do have post-pandemic art. I have love poems that also came out during the pandemic. It wasn't all sorrowful. So there were many poems of love that I wrote that'll turn into another book. And then I did go to Rhode Island this summer for 3 months, and I spent almost every day on the beach painting light on water. So I'm still at it now. I think I'm going to keep going, putting them together in different ways.
That's awesome, Lotus. I can't wait to see that artwork and hear the poetry, the love poem poetry. That's my favorite. For me, I kept coming back to how valuable time was. And, I think that's something we start to realize the older we get, but going through the pandemic, it like kind of compressed that importance on how valuable our time is, and that we should be a little bit picky with the kinds of projects that we get involved with. And so post-pandemic, I essentially want my art to have more of an impact on the world and people. And so for me, it's just going to have more heart. It's going to have more utility, I guess. I'm hoping.
They're hard to follow answers. I agree with everything that was said. I think definitely there's an element for me as well of understanding a little bit more about who I am, what my art is, and where I want to go with it, and what Ruben kind of was speaking about. And that feels really good. There's a little bit more of a clarity, I think, in that. And also, I think there's a slowness for me that I never really, had before. And then I'm hoping will stick around a little bit, and in that I also mean, a sense of kind of a deeper, more layered reflection on things and on my work. And in terms of materials, I've been working in glass with glass blowers, and during the pandemic, I'm like, I'm gonna go figure out how to do this and learn. And sometimes doing homeschool at the glass school with my daughter while I'm learning how to blow glass. And I was like, no, I'm gonna do this, So I think there's also a little bit of a fearlessness in taking risks or not waiting to do some of these things,
I like the way you put that, the whole thing about time and value and what you're doing, and love, and the experience of taking your art and pushing it a little bit forward, and making it just having fun with it sometimes and not thinking it through, I think that that's something that's pushing us forward. Let's see, what are you reading over here, Melissa?
Javier wants us to also answer that question.
What does art look like post-pandemic?
Yes.
It looks like it's gonna be more together, like having people get together more often. I feel like you're gonna see a lot more of art and experience, because it's a human experience. I want to say it's one of our last true freedoms that we hold on to, and that is expression. And it's something that as an art enthusiast and as an artist myself, that I take luster, and I love seeing all the artists producing like poetry, and then Ruben doing his little, his art and making it simple, just, and the mapping, like all of that. I thrive off of that. And I thrive off of the fact that that we get to go into the future together. This is a part in that no one's ever been to before, and we're going there together. So I think that it's very interesting space to be in, and that I'm glad I'm here with Melissa doing that, because I couldn't go to some of these places without her. She keeps me focused. She keeps it in reality. But you know what? It's a beautiful thing to witness, because there's a lot of young people and our peers that are looking at some of the outrageous things that we're creating, and I'd like to thank the Confluence Center.
And the only thing I have to add to that is that I think that post-pandemic art, I feel, is going to be much more accessible to folks. I just already have seen that as many artists had to create during the pandemic and share things through the platforms such as this, through Zoom, I feel like it's more accessible and available and just out there and more inspiring to more viewers and audience members. And so that's how I see it. But I agree with Mel. It's going to be a much more togetherness. And what you said, Ruben, being a little bit, how you said, more picky about what projects you want to work on. And it's about identifying like your community, right? And things that are more important to us, because we all know what we've lost during the pandemic and what we all wanted to focus on. So thank you for letting us answer that, Javier.
Right. Get all your projects done before the world ends.
That was a lot of pressure, though, don't you all think, during the pandemic? I mean, it was a lot of pressure. But
Totally.
is there anything else that any of you would like to say before we wrap this beautiful evening? I want to thank you all for all of your beautiful artwork and sharing so much with us tonight. It's been lovely. Thank you so much. And I hope it's not the last time that maybe in person, we can see each other soon.
I want to say thank you. I hope I get to meet everybody in person someday. I'm just honored to be here with you and everybody. Thank you, everybody who attended.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for your work. Really like your work. Congratulations.
Yeah, just thank you to the Dolores and Ruben, and to Mel and Melissa, and to everyone at the Confluence Center. It's just been an honor. Thank you.
Javier?
Well, again, this is inspiring, emotional, and also uplifting. And Mel, your words about the future are really, really right on spot. You said the art is going, repeat what you said. I thought it was really, really, it's a key element, because I think that's how many of us feel, right?
Well, yes, and I'm very excited that there's no one else who's been here before, and we're going into the future together. And I think that that's truly inspiring. Lights a fire for everyone.
You should put that outside the Galería. We're going to the future together. Vamos juntos hacia el futuro, ¿no? But I wanted to thank you both for agreeing to, again, partner with us and moderate and lead the questions, and also made us reflect about the work of our colleagues. And the idea of getting together, it's in the works. We're really going to make an effort to make that happen on December the 8th. It's a Wednesday. And we'll be in contact with more information. But I want to let people know that the Mitoteras are going to be part of that next show and tell. So we're gonna figure out something, a surprise type of program, but it's gonna be hopefully that opportunity for many of us to really come together in an open space and read each other and reconocernos, ¿no? Ya nos conocíamos, but I think we're in the process of reconocimiento, of reconnaissance, any type of workplace you want to do that. And also these encounters are going to be key because I think, as Ruben mentioned, the idea of recovering the lost time, which is an idea that has been in culture and literature for a long time, it's real for many folks in our communities. And it is that time to try to move forward together, but also being mindful of the moment in which we are and learning about what can we do to change things as we continue our journey in this work. So with that, again, I also want to remind you of our Fronteridades lecture on November 29 with Professor Socorro Tabuenca, and then the conversation between Norma Cantu and Socorro Tabuenca on the 30th. My thanks to all the participants, again, to the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, to the Conference Center team, and also to Galeria Mitotera, that, as I said, I'm not exaggerating. They are really creating the art, the future of the arts in South Tucson and beyond. And pay attention. You have not been there. You should go there this weekend, I believe. There is something happening. So I invite everybody to go to Galeria Mitotera and not only enjoy the art, but also the food and the conversation. So more to come about our future collaborations. But again, my thanks. Muchas gracias a todos los participantes, a toda la comunidad, and to the Conference Center team. Un gran aplauso y mi agradecimiento. They make these things happen. And it's thanks to them that we're here and we continue to move forward. With that, I want to wish everybody a good night and be careful, cuídense mucho y quiéranse mucho. So,
Good night, Javier. Good night, everybody.
hasta luego.
Yes,
Thank you,
Javier.
everybody. See you soon.
Buenas noches.
Gracias.